George Harrison once sang, "If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there." I mean, maybe worse than that. Have you ever been heading straight down one path only to find you're going the complete opposite wrong way? If we're going to talk about business, leadership, or achievement, we have to understand that there's been more innovation in the last decade than there has been in the last century. And let's run through some pivotal moments. Google and the Internet of Search launched only in 1998. And between 2000 and 2010, we saw the birth of Facebook, Apple TV, Netflix streaming, Twitter, smartphones, freaking smartphones, the App Store, and YouTube. And between 2010 and today, we've seen the birth of Instagram, Amazon Prime, Instant Video, Chromecast, Spotify, and the next generation of Apple Music. Entire industries have been turned upside down by the internet and the new startup economy. Kodak had been in operation since 1888, over 100 years, with close to 10,000 employees. And in one single year, it was completely bankrupt by 13 kids in San Francisco who had a little app called Instagram. We have to be primed for victory. Standards today have changed. If you're fighting a new battle in an old way, you're going to lose the war. The nature of imperialism in the world today has completely changed. England is no longer a conquering nation, out there conquering nation states and converting them to serve the crown. Instead, isolated pockets of individuals are forging their own revolutionary war against the incumbents in almost every industry. And if history has any lessons to tell us, the Patriots beat the Redcoats because they practiced guerrilla tactics instead of challenging the antiquated, absurd, competitive firing lines of the Queen's Army. This analogy is pretty brutal to be sure, but it's accurate. In my parents' generation, from the 60s all the way until about the 90s, the cool thing for a kid to do was to start a band, to start a counterculture revolution, to bring down the man with a song that would change a lifetime. The rock bands of the 21st century are the startup businesses today. You have your lead singer, your CEO, your drummer, back-end developer, the guitarist, the UI designer, and the bassist, your sales officer. Millions of kids all over the world with a laptop and a smartphone are starting businesses with the sole intent of becoming disruptive, which is just a euphemism for the idea that they are waging war against incumbent businesses and industries. And it's all in good humor until about 100 or 10,000 people lose their jobs, like Instagram and Kodak. And I'm not complaining about this. It's innovation, but I am saying it's an opportunity and a warning. And if you don't know the rules of the game today, you're the Redcoats fighting the Patriots. You may be superior in every way except in the one that matters, strategy. You see, we're all dreamers, but it's not about dreaming today. It's about turning your vision into reality. Today, when someone achieves the impossible, it's called a dream. And when they just sit around thinking about it, it's called procrastination. Again, we have to be able to take the invisible, here's the theme, and turn it into reality. That's magic, and it's also the way things are today. This pillar is about your understanding strategy and value. Now, have you heard of the Wizard of Schenectady? It's a great story. Ford Motor Company was having an issue with a gigantic generator. Not knowing what else to do, losing millions of dollars at the time, Ford said, I need the best. I need the best right now. So he called in the Wizard of Schenectady, Charles Proteus Steinmetz. Upon arriving, Steinmetz rejected all assistance and asked only for a notebook and a pencil. He got to work, got to thinking, inspecting the machine, then asked for a ladder. He climbed up to the generator and made a small chalk mark on the side and told Ford's engineers, turn this bolt, and then left. The engineers did what he said, and boom, it all worked to perfection. A few weeks later, he sent Ford the bill, $10,000. Ford was shocked. It's equivalent to close to $1 million today. Ford acknowledged Steinmetz, obviously. He was successful, but he was a little surprised by this figure. The whole process probably took him all of an hour, so Ford asked for an itemized bill. The Wiz, responding personally, sent him a bill that said, Making chalk mark on generator, $1. Knowing where to make the mark, 9,999. You see, it's knowing which bolt to turn, not the time it takes to turn it. Ford paid the bill. If you're running a business or achieving a dream or running your life, what gets managed is what's being measured. But without a metric for success, you're already failing. We have to know what to do and when to do it. Then we have to fuel it with the passion that drives action. There's no absolute rule that says your metric of success for business needs to be making a lot of money. It could be changing lives. It could be creating your own happiness. It could be creating peace in the Middle East. Business is defined as a person's regular occupation, profession, or trade. And there's no narrow stretch to what that can mean. Do you remember in grade school when someone would get nosy and another person would turn to them and say, "That's none of your business, it's none of ya"? Well, what was that business? I'm sure it's a lot different than the way you think of business today. And what if your business was to make yourself and others happy? What if that was your chief concern? And yes, we live in a world, and yes, we have to make money, and money is a means, it's an important means, but it's not an ends. I know plenty of people who have more money than they can ever spend in their life, and they're too sick and beat down to enjoy it. Could they have had the same job, made the same amount, but made enjoying life their business instead of wasting it? I don't know. It's just a thought. And with that said, I often ask people, what's your triangle? Our lives are often ruled by three things: what we do to make money, our job, what we do for passion, and what we do for social good. It's an interesting question. I encourage you to ask other people about that. And no matter what you do, momentum is everything. You can ride farther and faster with small wins and achieve things you never thought was possible with small, little incremental gains as opposed to huge quantum leaps. In my own personal work, I've learned two fundamental truths to any business, artist development, product, anything. One, start with where you're at. And two, create something you want to use. If success means going from 0 to 100, too many people start with 2, creating something that they want to use, and fail because they never take the first step. Instead, they try to go from 50 to 100 and wonder why it's not working. They don't want to start with one, the first step, the first thing close in, the step they don't want to take. Others start exactly where they're at. They take the first step, but they create something that they wouldn't want to buy, let alone use, and somehow expect others to buy it. Not going to work. 2 simple rules, don't break them. Start with where you're at. 2, create something you want to use. And if you start by doing what's necessary, then do what's possible, suddenly you're doing the impossible. Don't be fooled when we call this pillar business, because what it's really about is right action, getting what you want, and knowing how. Now, how do most people get what they want in life? They set goals. And I'm warning you now, as we begin to talk about this, goals are dangerous. Goals should be handled like nitroglycerin. You see, I believe there are no lazy people, only impotent goals. If you don't believe me, let me explain. Have you ever been up with a friend one night, late one night, maybe a special friend, and you started thinking, this is interesting. And next thing you know, you're up all night to get lucky? Now, that was a motivating goal. You probably weren't even tired. Where did all the time go? I bet if you were dead tired right now, you'd perk up immediately if your celebrity crush paid you a surprise visit and wanted to, talk. I think what you're getting from that is that the right goal can be extremely motivating for us. And maybe even instead of being used by triggers like this, we can actually use triggers like this to motivate ourselves towards any goal we want to achieve. But understand there's a dark side to this too. Let's take the same example. Sometimes it's easy to get carried away with the thrill of the goal that you end up getting too much of what you don't really want and regretting it afterwards. In other words, we chase sex and we find we want a real connection. Or we chase money and we find out we wanted happiness. Or we chased happiness and we find out we wanted love and acceptance. You see, everything we do is for a state and a status. A state being emotion, happy, mad, glad, sad, angry, inspiration. And a status being, I have this car, this girlfriend, this much money. And we expect, we always seem to, that having a certain status will give us a state. But when it doesn't, we feel empty and unfulfilled. I thought if I just achieved this, I would feel that. And the thing is, you might, but only for a moment. See, as Alan Watts said, find what you love and do that. And do that and forget the money, because if you say that getting money is the most important thing, you'll spend your life completely wasting your time. You'll be doing things you don't like doing in order to go on living. That is, to go on doing things you don't like doing, which is stupid. Better to have a short life that is full of what you like doing than a long life spent in a miserable way. And he also said, if happiness always depends on something expected in the future, we are chasing a will-o'-the-wisp that ever eludes our grasp until the future and ourselves vanish into the abyss of death. Whew, man, powerful stuff. Now, here's a way to stay motivated, to stay on the path. Most people spend their life looking forward, at least in terms of goals, what they could have, what they want. They focus on the future, their goal. The problem with this is that just like a horse chasing a carrot on a stick hung out in front of them will never reach the thing they're driving towards, the grass is always greener here because we're constantly habituating to the grass we're on and wanting something else. If we focus on the gap between where we are now and where we want to be, we may be excited, we may cross the gap, but we're not going to be fulfilled because there's always another gap to cross, another bridge to cross. Instead, try this exercise. Think back on some goal you've been working towards and been frustrated by. Now, instead of looking forward towards the completion of that goal, look back at all the amazing things you've accomplished leading up to this moment. It doesn't matter how far you've come. Appreciate how far you've come. Just appreciate it. This creates gratitude. And if fulfillment is the fruit of the tree of life, gratitude is the roots that make it thrive. Now, achievement takes action and knowing what stops it. Now, there's knowing certain productivity hacks and knowing that things like organization is efficiency. Like, think about the mise en scene in French cooking, and that consistency is key. But all in all, the message I want you to take home here is that the goal is to take the invisible and make it visible. That's the stuff of champions. That's the stuff of world shapers. That's the embodiment of destiny. Walt Disney died in 1966. 1966, which was 5 years before Disney World was open to the public for the first time. A reporter commented to Walt's brother Roy at the opening of Disney World, "It's too bad that Walt isn't here to see this." And Roy replied, "We see it today because he saw it first. We see it today because he saw it first."